Let me tell you something that most people never hear growing up. Success is not inherited. It's trained. Millionaire thinking isn't in your bloodline. It's in your belief system. And the only reason some people get ahead isn't because they're more talented or born lucky or have some secret advantage. It's because they learned how to think differently. They trained their minds to reject average. They decided somewhere along the way that their life was worth more than playing small. Now, if you weren't raised in a household that taught you about money, mindset, or building a future, that's not your fault. But it is your responsibility to do something about it now. You don't need a trust fund to build a successful life. You need trust in your ability to learn and change. Because here's the truth. Millionaire thinking is not something you're born with. It's a set of mental habits you build. And if you're willing to train your brain like a high performer trains their body, there is nothing stopping you from thinking, acting, and succeeding like the top 1%. Look around you. Most people aren't broke because of a lack of money. They're broke because of a lack of mindset. They've inherited beliefs like, that's too risky, or people like us don't do things like that, or I'll never be rich, I just want to survive. That thinking, that is the exact virus you've got to eliminate from your brain if you want to do anything big in life. Millionaires don't tolerate that. They rewire their thoughts. They replace limitations with questions. They don't say, I can't afford that. They say, how can I afford that? Do you see the shift? It's about training your brain to look for solutions, not excuses. It's a skill, just like learning to drive or ride a bike. You're not born knowing how to do it, but once you learn, once you put in the reps, it becomes second nature. Millionaire thinking is about learning to delay gratification, to focus long-term, to control emotions when everyone else is panicking. It's about self-education, not school education. You can have degrees and still be broke. You can be uneducated and still become a millionaire. Because what matters most is your ability to think differently, to think with courage, not fear. With clarity, not chaos. With belief, not doubt. And here's something else. People with a millionaire mindset don't get there by wanting to be rich. Wanting isn't enough. Everyone wants it. They get there by taking actions that most people avoid. They read when others scroll. They invest when others spend. They show up when others complain. That kind of thinking, it's not a personality trait, it's a mental discipline. It's waking up and deciding again and again that you will not think like a victim, a doubter, or a quitter. So ask yourself, what are the dominant thoughts in your mind right now? Are they thoughts that keep you small or push you to grow? Are they thoughts that help you avoid failure or thoughts that teach you how to win? Are you spending your days proving your limitations or training your mind to exceed them? If you want to think like a millionaire, start by not believing everything you think. Most of us are walking around with outdated programming installed by people who were just trying to survive. It's your job to upgrade the system. You upgrade it with new habits, with new beliefs, with new actions. One decision at a time. Your life changes the moment you stop saying, that's just the way I am, and start saying, that's who I used to be. You want more? Then think more. Think higher, think braver. Start rewiring your brain to look for opportunity instead of obstacles, and to take responsibility instead of waiting for rescue. Millionaire thinking isn't about arrogance or entitlement. It's about believing you're capable, even when the evidence doesn't show it yet. It's about trusting that if you train your mind the right way, your reality will catch up. Let's get one thing straight. Discipline will take you places motivation never will. This is a hard truth, but it's also one of the most freeing truths you'll ever hear, because motivation is unreliable. It's inconsistent. It shows up when it wants to, and it disappears the second things get uncomfortable. But discipline doesn't care how you feel. Discipline is what keeps you going when the excitement wears off. And if you want to train your mind like a millionaire, you've got to stop relying on fleeting emotions and start building mental habits that anchor you, even when you don't feel like it. Here's what most people get wrong. They wait to feel motivated before they act. They think, when I feel ready, I'll start. Or I need to get in the mood to work on this goal. And let me be honest with you. That mindset is the reason why so many dreams die. Motivation is not what successful people rely on. Millionaires don't sit around waiting to feel inspired. They don't need a pump-up speech every morning just to do the work. They've trained themselves to act, regardless of whether they feel like it or not. Discipline is a muscle, and like any muscle, it gets stronger with use. Every time you show up when it's inconvenient, you're training your brain to trust you. Every time you choose to follow through, instead of giving in to excuses, you're rewriting your identity. And that's what millionaire thinking is all about. It's about developing the kind of mental toughness that doesn't negotiate with excuses. It's about becoming the kind of person who follows through no matter what the conditions are. The problem is that we've been conditioned to believe that we need to feel something to do something. You don't. You don't need to feel like going to the gym to go to the gym. You don't need to feel confident to take a risk. You don't need to feel ready to begin. You just need to decide. Discipline is built through decisions, not emotions. The decision to do the thing anyway. The decision to keep the promise you made to yourself. The decision to get up one more time after you fall. Think about this. How do you think successful people keep going after failure, after stress, after setbacks? They don't keep going because they feel amazing all the time. They keep going because they've built a system. Discipline is that system. It's the habit of showing up. It's the routine that doesn't change just because you're tired or distracted. Millionaires don't ask, "Do I feel like working today?" They ask, "What's on my calendar?" And then they do it. Period. It's about commitment to the process, not commitment to your feelings. If you want to train your mind like a millionaire, you need to build habits that run deeper than motivation. Because motivation is like a spark. It might get the fire started, but it won't keep it burning. Discipline is the wood. It's the fuel. It's what sustains your fire when everything around you is trying to put it out. This means getting clear on your non-negotiables. What are the things you will do no matter what? For millionaires, those things are sacred. They're not optional. And that's why they succeed. It's not because they're special. It's because they don't argue with themselves about whether or not to do the work. They just do it. Discipline is also freedom. That sounds backward, but it's true. When you build discipline, you're not controlled by your impulses anymore. You're not a slave to procrastination. You're not stuck in the loop of starting and quitting. You become dependable. You know that when you set a goal, you'll show up. And that kind of trust in yourself, that's priceless. That's how millionaires think. They trust themselves because they've earned that trust through consistent action. You invest in learning something new instead of scrolling your life away. And each one of those moments builds a new mental blueprint. Each one says, I take calculated risks, I trust myself, I grow through action. Eventually, your brain starts to crave the challenge. It stops panicking when things feel uncertain and starts getting curious. It says, let's see what I'm capable of. And that mindset, that's the mindset that builds wealth, builds businesses, builds freedom. So stop thinking of risk as the enemy. Start seeing it for what it really is, a gateway to growth, a test of your courage, a tool that, when used wisely, will fast-track your evolution. Millionaires don't avoid risk. They train for it, they get smarter because of it, and they build lives most people only dream of. All because they were willing to do what felt uncertain when everyone else stayed safe. Risk isn't something to fear, it's something to master. And the sooner you train your mind to see it that way, the faster your life will start to change. Failure is not the opposite of success. It's part of the process. And if you're serious about training your mind like a millionaire, you need to completely rethink your relationship with failure. Most people are terrified of it. They see failure as something final, something shameful, something to avoid at all costs. But that's not how millionaires think. That's not how winners think. People who succeed at the highest levels treat failure as feedback. They don't get paralyzed by it. They study it. They ask, what can I learn from this? Instead of what does this say about me? Millionaires understand something most people don't. The faster you fail, the faster you learn. They move quickly, take bold action, and when they fall short, which they often do, they don't fall apart. They assess, adjust, and keep going. This mindset doesn't just happen. It's built, it's trained, it's developed by getting back up more times than you fall down. The world doesn't reward perfection, it rewards perseverance. The people who rise to the top are not the ones who never failed. They're the ones who refuse to stay down. Think about it. Every major success story you've ever heard has failure baked into it. Businesses that almost went bankrupt, ideas that flopped before they found traction, leaders who were laughed at, doubted, rejected, again and again. The difference is they didn't let failure define them, they let it refine them. They saw every misstep as a lesson, every obstacle as an opportunity to grow sharper, smarter, stronger. They didn't make it personal. They made it productive. The average person fails and makes it about their identity. I failed, so I must not be good enough. I must not be smart enough. Maybe I'm not meant for this. And right there, right in that mindset, that's where the path ends. Millionaires, on the other hand, separate failure from identity. They say, I failed because I tried something new. I failed because I was stretching myself. I failed, and now I know more than I did yesterday. Do you hear the difference? One mindset shuts you down. Mute old the other one sets you up for the next level. If you want to build this kind of thinking, you've got to practice failing forward. That means not just being willing to fail, but expecting it, embracing it. Knowing that if you're not failing from time to time, you're probably not taking enough risks. You're probably not pushing yourself far enough outside your comfort zone. Millionaires don't play it safe. They test, they tweak, they experiment. They know they can't hit a home run if they never step up to the plate. And even when they strike out, they study the swing. They look at the pitch. They use it to improve. Failure is also the fastest way to get real data. You can sit around thinking about what might work, or you can take action and find out what actually works. You can read, plan, overanalyze, but until you do the thing and fail at it if necessary, you're not growing. You're not learning. You're just spinning in circles. Action is the teacher, and failure is the exam that shows you what you've absorbed. Millionaires don't run from that. They lean into it. You also need to stop hiding your failures. Too many people suffer in silence when things don't go their way. But the truth is, your failures are part of your credibility. They're part of your story. People relate to struggle. People are inspired by comebacks. When you're honest about what didn't work, you take back your power. You control the narrative, and you give other people permission to keep going too. That's leadership, that's resilience, that's the millionaire mindset in action. So the next time you fall short, don't shrink, don't spiral, stop. Stop. Look at the situation with clear eyes. Ask yourself, what did I learn? What would I do differently next time? Where did I assume instead of preparing? Where did I hesitate when I should have acted? That's how you turn a loss into leverage. That's how you evolve. Failure is not your enemy. It's your mentor. It's not there to break you. It's there to build you. But only if you're willing to see it that way. Millionaires fail fast because they learn fast. They don't dwell, they develop. And that's the edge, that's the difference. You don't rise in life by avoiding failure. You rise by getting so good at bouncing back that nothing can keep you down for long. You fall, you rise, you learn, you repeat. That's the formula. That's the path. And if you stick with it, you'll train your mind for greatness, one failure at a time. If there's one thing that separates people who live in survival mode from people who build wealth, it's this. Millionaires think long-term. They don't just live for the moment. They're not reactive. They're intentional. They understand that the decisions they make today are shaping the results they'll experience a year, 5 years, even 10 years from now. And that kind of thinking, that's not just about money. That's about discipline, vision, and self-respect. It's about playing the game with strategy, not impulse. And if you want to train your mind like a millionaire, you've got to start thinking beyond the next weekend, the next paycheck, or the next dopamine hit. Look around. Most people are addicted to instant gratification. They want fast results, quick fixes, immediate validation. They spend money to feel good now, scroll for hours to avoid discomfort, and jump from one thing to the next without sticking with anything long enough to see real progress. But millionaires, they delay pleasure for purpose. They sacrifice what they want right now for what they want most. They think in years, not moments. And that mindset is exactly what allows them to build something meaningful, lasting, and powerful. Let me be clear, this isn't about being boring or living a joyless life. It's about being strategic. It's about deciding that your future matters more than your impulses, that your goals are more important than your distractions. Millionaire thinking means you make choices today that serve the person you're becoming, not the person you've been. You don't spend just because you can. You invest because you should. You don't chase what feels good. You chase what creates good. Long-term thinking also builds resilience. When you train your mind to zoom out, setbacks don't destroy you. You're less emotional, more grounded. You stop expecting overnight wins. You stop quitting after 2 weeks because you didn't see results. You understand that real change, real success, real wealth, you build habits, you stack small wins, and eventually those small wins compound into something massive. That's another thing millionaires understand, the power of compounding. Not just in money, but in effort, in learning, in relationships, in decision-making. They know that the right habits repeated over time create unstoppable momentum. You don't get rich from one brilliant move. You get rich from hundreds of smart decisions made over and over again. Millionaires don't rely on one lottery ticket. They build systems, and those systems are based on long-term focus. Now ask yourself, how often do you pause and consider where your current habits are taking you? How often do you make decisions with your future self in mind? Because every choice you make is a vote for the kind of life you're going to live. Every time you skip the hard work to do what's easy, you're making a deposit into short-term comfort and a withdrawal from long-term growth. And over time, that adds up. It always adds up. You have to become someone who doesn't just set goals but thinks in trajectories. Someone who can say, I don't need to see instant results because I'm not building a temporary win. I'm building a legacy. Millionaire thinking is about zooming out far enough to realize that not every win happens today. But every action today is creating tomorrow's win. This also applies to relationships. Millionaires build powerful networks, not by demanding quick favors, but by nurturing connections over time. They know that trust, credibility, and opportunity are all built in layers. You don't rush that. You respect it. You stay in the game long enough to become undeniable. You deliver results again and again until people have no choice but to notice. Long-term thinking also helps you stay focused. You stop being distracted by trends. You stop comparing your chapter 2 to someone else's chapter 20. You develop tunnel vision, not in a limiting way, but in a liberating one. You stop chasing shiny objects and start chasing mastery. You don't just want quick success, you want sustainable success. That's how you train your mind like a millionaire. You think ahead. You delay gratification. You zoom out, you plan, you execute, you stop living for now and start building for next. Because next is coming whether you're ready or not. And the people who are ready, the people who train their minds to think long term, they're the ones who win. One of the most powerful mental shifts you can make if you want to think like a millionaire is to develop the habit of taking full ownership of your life. No more blame, no more excuses. No more waiting for someone to rescue you, give you permission, or change your circumstances. Millionaires understand something most people don't. If you want to change your life, it starts with you. It starts with your mindset, your habits, your daily decisions. So, everything else, your background, your past, your current limitations, those are just variables. They don't determine your outcome. You do. This kind of ownership isn't just about responsibility, it's about power. Because when you stop blaming other people, the economy, your boss, or your upbringing, you take your power back. You're no longer a victim of your environment. You become the architect of your future. Millionaires live in that headspace. They don't waste time complaining about what they can't control. They double down on what they can control. Their effort, their focus, their attitude, their decisions. When something doesn't go their way, they don't spiral into self-pity. They evaluate. They ask, what could I have done differently? What's the lesson here? How can I improve next time? That mindset is why they keep growing. It's why they bounce back faster from failure. It's why they don't plateau. Because they're always learning, always adjusting, always taking responsibility, not just for their wins, but for their mistakes. Most people don't realize how much of their mental energy is wasted on blaming others or waiting for ideal conditions. They say things like, I could be successful if I had more support, or I'd take action if I had more time. Or it's not fair. They had better opportunities. And all those thoughts do is keep them stuck. They keep you small. They let you off the hook. But that's exactly where the growth happens. That's where ownership lives. And the second you decide to stay on that hook, to own your outcomes, your habits, your growth, you begin to unlock the kind of mental strength that millionaires operate with every day. Ownership also means setting standards for yourself that are higher than anyone else would set for you. Millionaires don't wait to be told what to do. They lead themselves, they wake up with intention. They don't need someone watching over them or cheering them on to be consistent. They drive their own performance. They hold themselves accountable. And they do it even when no one is watching, because their standard isn't about impressing others. It's about being in alignment with who they've decided to become. This mindset spills into every area of life. In finances, it means not blaming debt or bills, but instead asking, what do I need to learn about money? Where am I avoiding responsibility? What can I start doing today to build wealth instead of just survive? In health, it means owning your energy levels, your discipline, your choices, regardless of how busy or stressed you are. In relationships, it means stopping the blame game and asking, what am I bringing to this dynamic? How can I communicate better? How can I show up more fully? When you adopt this level of ownership, something incredible happens. Your confidence grows because you're no longer outsourcing your outcomes to luck or other people. You're taking action, you're in control. And that self-trust, that's one of the most valuable assets you can ever build. Millionaires have it because they've earned it. Through consistency, through ownership, through proving to themselves that they can handle whatever comes their way. This doesn't mean you'll always get it right. You won't. You'll make mistakes. You'll have setbacks. But when you take ownership, those mistakes don't define you, they teach you. You stop fearing failure and start using it. You stop hiding from challenges and start seeking them out because you know that everything you go through is shaping the person you're becoming. At the end of the day, millionaire thinking is not about luck or privilege. It's about leadership, self-leadership. The ability to say, no one is coming to save me, and that's okay because I don't need saving. I just need to show up for myself every single day and do the work. That mindset changes everything. That's how you build a life you're proud of. That's how you train your mind to win, not by waiting, not by blaming, but by owning it all, fully, fiercely, and unapologetically. Millionaires don't leave their growth to chance. They treat their mind like their most valuable asset because they know that everything they build, every business, every investment, every opportunity starts with the way they think. That's why they're obsessed with learning, not because it's trendy or because they're trying to impress anyone, but because they understand that the moment you stop learning is the moment you start declining. The world is moving fast, and if you're not evolving, you're getting left behind. That's not fear-based thinking. That's reality. And people who win long-term are the ones who train their minds to keep up. You have to see personal growth the way millionaires do. As a non-negotiable, it's not optional. It's not something you get around to when you have spare time. It's a daily habit. They read, they listen, they ask questions. They surround themselves with people who stretch their thinking. They invest in coaches and programs and tools that help them see more, think clearer, and move faster. They're not afraid to admit they don't know something because they're more committed to learning than they are to looking smart. Most people outgrow school and then stop learning altogether. They rely on what they already know. And over time, that knowledge becomes stale. Their thinking gets rigid. They default to old patterns and they wonder why nothing ever changes. Millionaires never make that mistake. They know that yesterday's knowledge won't solve tomorrow's problems. They're constantly upgrading their mindset like it's software. New inputs, better strategies, more awareness. Because better thinking leads to better results. This kind of growth isn't just about consuming more information. It's about applying it. Millionaires don't just read books. They take action on what they learn. They don't just attend seminars. They implement the ideas. They don't just collect motivational quotes, they live them. Growth to them is not about feeling inspired for a moment. It's about becoming more capable, more skilled, more powerful over time. And that only happens when you do something with what you learn. You also need to understand that growth requires humility. You have to be willing to admit that you have blind spots, that there's more to learn, that you're not finished. The ego hates this. The ego wants to be right. It wants to feel like it has everything figured out. But millionaires don't operate from ego. They operate from curiosity. They don't need to be the smartest person in the room. In fact, they try not to be. They seek out mentors, they ask for feedback, and they're willing to feel uncomfortable in the process of becoming better. There's also a huge connection between learning and earning. The more you grow your skills, your emotional intelligence, your strategic thinking, the more valuable you become. The market rewards value, and value comes from knowledge, wisdom, and execution. That's why millionaires invest in themselves, because they know that the ROI on personal development is limitless. The more they grow, the more options they have. The more they learn, the more leverage they create. It's not about having a degree or a fancy title. It's about constantly increasing your capacity to solve problems and create impact. Even in failure, they grow, especially in failure. Millionaire thinkers look at every experience as a lesson. Every mistake becomes a masterclass. They journal, they reflect, they extract wisdom from their pain. That's how they bounce back stronger every time, because they're not afraid to confront themselves. They're not afraid to dig into the tough stuff. Growth isn't always glamorous. Sometimes it's painful. Sometimes it means letting go of old beliefs or admitting that the way you've been doing things isn't working anymore. But that's the cost of evolving, and millionaires are willing to pay it. If you want to train your mind like a millionaire, you have to make growth your identity. Not something you do once in a while, but something you are. You are someone who learns. You are someone who improves. You are someone who asks better questions, seeks better answers, and takes better actions every single day. You don't wait for permission. You don't wait for the perfect time. You start where you are, with what you have, and you commit to getting just a little better every day. Because that's what separates the people who stay stuck from the people who break through. The ones who rise don't have all the answers, they just refuse to stop learning. They make growth a lifestyle, and over time, that mindset turns into wealth, into freedom, into legacy. Not because they were lucky, but because they train their minds to grow and never stop.